Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm just out of or still in parental leave, so I kind of threw this together when I had time between changing diapers. Um, when people ask me how I got into esports, it's quite a long story. So I figured I would go through it and then provide as much detail and tips as I can throughout the story. So started quite young, as you can see. My it's from March 1991 with my father, a recent owner of or early owner of a laptop. Um, my first gaming experience started with Worms in 1995. I don't know if, yeah, for those who don't know what Worms is, it's a action game where you play these small worms that shoot each other. Um, and then that evolved into playing a game called Lero in 1998, which is a live action version of Worms, kind of, where you can play against each other. And I did that with some friends at my neighbor's house. And a couple of years after that, a game called Counter-Strike was released, which is the most famous tactical first-person shooter game in the world. And that's also an early beginning of esports as we know it today. So I had my brother and my cousin competed in Counter-Strike back in the day, and that was early 2000s. My parents were not happy about it, and they would, spend all their time competing and practicing. And at the end of maybe a 6 months period, they would have made $2,000, so it wasn't a whole lot to brag about. And so growing up, I never considered esports as a career at all. But I was very passion driven in my career. So I started out in the music industry, which was my second passion. Worked 10 years in the music industry, and worked with big companies like Sony Music and Universal. I did a lot of marketing and management, and after a while, I started feeling a bit burnt out, and I wanted to do something new. And that's when also esports was booming a bit. This was in 2017. And I knew some people that worked in esports, so I started looking into that as a career. And I used my personal network to look for jobs. I used LinkedIn a lot. Just looked for anything that I came across. Eventually, I saw some open positions that matched my experience at a company called Freaks for You Gaming, which is based in Berlin. They have other offices around the world, but that's their main office. So, fun fact for the people that don't know Freaks for You, back in also late 90s, there was a group of people that hosted Quake and Counter-Strike tournaments in Germany and in Berlin. They were fairly successful, started hosting bigger and bigger events, and then eventually they had an internal debate on what the most profitable way into the future of esports would be. One part of the company thought that esports events would be the most profitable. Another part thought that marketing would be the most profitable. So they split up. One part of the company became what we know as ESL, which is the biggest esports tournament organizer in the world. And the other part eventually became Freaks for Your Gaming, which is a 360 marketing firm. It's the biggest marketing firm in esports and gaming. They have over 250 clients, ranging from Red Bull to tech brands and esport like game developers, you name it. So I started working in a community manager and social media manager role at that company. My primary focus was on the sponsorship relationship between some of our clients and different esport teams. And among those were Team Liquid, which I would travel to events and help them create marketing campaigns and run marketing activations with their players and their profiles. And so I got a good relationship with them, and eventually they asked if I wanted to come help build out their community management department. This was in late 2017. The company had just merged together with an American team called Team Curse. And we were I think we were 13 full-time employees at that point when I started working there. And I spent the next 6 years working with Team Liquid. I did had a lot of different roles. We were a fast-moving startup, so we were all kind of potatoes, as we say in Norway, where we help out where it's needed. And that's what I did. So I worked in marketing, in brand management. I did team management. This photo is from a PUBG tournament, which we won. And also did event administration at the end. So yeah, and eventually after 6 years, we had grown into a company of over 350 employees. We had over $100 million in revenue the year I left. We had offices in Shanghai, in Brazil, in Netherlands, and in California. And it was a very, sort of a chaotic time. We had a lot of growing pains throughout those years. And and then at the same time, I had a brother who's struggling with his health, and my parents needed some help, so I decided to move back home to Norway. And I left Team Liquid and started looking for a job in here. And eventually, I got in touch with Apeks and started working there as a business development manager. And I've spent the past 2 years working at Apeks, which is a Norwegian esport organization that competes in Counter-Strike, Fortnite, and Valorant at the moment. So yeah, Apeks was originally founded by Anders Skjær, which is a former Counter-Strike professional player. He got in touch with Denise and Ole Anfinsen. They inherited a company called Glava, which is a Norwegian isolation and construction company, which they sold. And they've spent their fortune investing in sports, and they have a passion for games. So they decided to invest in esports, and they're very enthusiastic about like when you talked about Paris Blast Major, that was the owners that were definitely the loudest in that crowd. We are less than 20 employees currently, and at the moment we are, as many other startups in Norway, struggling with a difficult financial landscape, and so we'll be cutting down those employee numbers over the course of this year, and hopefully get back on track as soon as we can. In Norway, there aren't very many esport employers, but there are a few. So if you're pursuing an esport career in Norway, there are opportunities. And here are some of them. You have gamer.no, which is the national Norwegian esports league and a editorial site for gaming news. You have Eldorado and Haven, which are esport centers or gaming centers where you can go in and you can play PC games with your friends if you don't have a PC at home, or if you just want to gather up with many of your friends and play in the same location. Then you have some esport organizations or teams, where you have Apeks, Metasport, 777, which is, they don't have their logo here, but Heroic, where Apeks is the biggest purely Norwegian one, and Heroic is the biggest one, but was originally a Danish company that was bought up by a Norwegian investor some years ago. And esports organizations, for those of you wondering what those look like in terms of the business structure, I have here Team Liquid. This is how we set up. So Team Liquid is split into 3 major categories, where you have the athletic side of the company, which is all the sports and competition. Then you have the business side, which handles all the business administration, and then you have their marketing side, which is called brand marketing and content. This is how that's structured inside the company, where you can look at the lower categories, where you have brand and the brand management of the organization. You have a marketing team, a social media team, an events team, art and design, writing and copy, and then you have 2 big production teams that are based in all of the major regions that Team Liquid competes in. Apeks, which is a much smaller company, this is how we structured the company. So we have the 4 major categories: athletics, which is again the sports side of the company. We have content, events, and agency, which will tie into sales, which are all the products that we create under these categories. And we have every esports company have various roles within these categories. But I would say this is a fairly typical structure or way to segment the different esports companies that exist. And when it comes to getting a job in esports, network has been very important for me, and I think for anyone. It can seem like a very big industry, but it can also feel very small when you work in it. So if you know a few people, you can often get in touch with whoever you want in the industry. And networking has always helped me in getting the roles that I have had throughout my career. When it comes to being hired, the requirements for a role can be very situational and vary a lot between organizations and between different teams within that organization. To give an example, we recently hired, our most recent full-time hire was our Valorant team manager. So this is a role that we knew would be very important within our organization. We knew the person would be a spokesperson for our organization in dealing with Riot Games, which is the developer of the video game Valorant. And so we needed that person to be very professional. We needed a person to have very deep understanding of the game, but also the financial ecosystem around the game. And so those were the main points that we brought into the interview process, and that can change a lot between what role you're applying for and what the organization is looking for from their employees. When I worked at Team Liquid and I hired out our community management team, we hired 15 people, and we had everything from people having multiple years of experience to we had a person who was previously a chef, had no esports experience, aside from being an esports fan of the team. We had a former church minister. So there was really no limitation there to your prior experience, except for having the knowledge of the fan base that we were catering to with the community team. Volunteering can be a very efficient way of getting into esports, especially as students. You have a lot of free time you can utilize and get the foot in the door. A lot of all the organizations I've worked with have had volunteer roles, and those people are usually highest up when it comes to the priority of hiring into new roles as well. You get a sense of who they are, you get a sense of how they work, and then it's easier to make a decision to hire them into full-time work when an opportunity arises. Become an expert. There are many people in esports who know a little bit about a lot, but finding the people that are experts in their field is difficult, and they usually already have a job in esports. So if you can become an expert in the field, that's very valuable, and will definitely give you an edge when it comes to getting hired. Professionalism and reputation tie into each other. Very important. As I mentioned, the esports industry can feel very small. So if you have a bad reputation, that spreads fast. I've personally been involved in many situations where we know that the person has a bad reputation, and then they're immediately not considered for a role because of that. Also, it's an industry where a lot of young people work. So if you are professional and you have a professional mindset, maybe you have prior experience from a big company in a more traditional field, that will help you and set you apart from a lot of people as well. I went through a little bit fast, but I can also mention to touch on the previous panel. When I worked at Team Liquid in the events team, we hosted tournaments for a lot of our partners. One of those partners was IMC Trading, which is an international trading firm. They had done some research on their own where they had discovered that their top financial traders in their firm had a very similar personality and decision-making traits to professional esports athletes. So they decided to sponsor an esports organization, Team Liquid, in order to market themselves towards that audience. And we created a big tournament series targeted for students, where we made students aware of the company and had big success with that. But we also created big internal tournaments for the staff at IMC Trading, where they had all their international offices compete in these tournaments, and which helped them with their employer branding. And this was a huge success for them. So very much believe in what Gard is doing in terms of collaborating with the esports industry and schools. I don't know if anyone has any questions.